allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 1 is approval of the agenda. However, got a couple of changes. Item number 14, we're going to move to executive session, and on the consent agenda, which is item number 4, under A3, we are going to move that to be between item number 6 and item number 7. With that, is there a motion to approve the consent, or I'm sorry, to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Clem, seconded by Alderman Sellers. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Number 2 is approval of the minutes from the regular meeting on May 20th, 2024. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Shadle, seconded by Alderman Clem. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Public comments, we have one signed in that was emailed to the clerk for items number 7 and 8.
Good afternoon, Freeport City Council and Mayor. Below, you will find my email correspondence with the city clerk between Heritage Arrow and the city of Freeport. I understand the importance of efficient processing and transparency in governmental operations. I find it abhorrent that the city clerk, city manager, and others are consistently denying or delaying information relating to backroom deals being done in the city of Freeport. Not only did the city clerk fail to respond in 5 days as required by Illinois law, she followed up the missed deadline with an extension request a full day after the deadline had passed, surely to cover her lack of adherence to the law. The city has how many attorneys? The city clerk and city attorneys claim redacting and denying critical information pursuant to the Illinois Freedom of Information Act 5 ILCS 140 Section 71B and F. One would wonder, when did current rental lease rates, lease dates, and text messages relating to critical messages between two parties doing city work in a city government-private relationship become redactable? There are clearly text messages missing from the threads, as shown in the text messages provided by the city clerk between Heritage Arrow and city government. By law statute, the items must be included but may be redacted. But if they are not included, even though the screenshots show the additional messages, were their laws broken? I cannot believe the amount of back and forth in just 30 days between these parties. I also find it interesting that a sitting alderman is also knee-deep in this mess. A few questions to ponder. What date did Heritage Arrow's current lease start? What is Heritage Arrow paying for lease rates under the current contract? When did Heritage Arrow start paying that amount? Does Heritage Arrow pay for utilities, gas, electric? Why the confusion in November with respect to utilities when the rental agreement clearly states utilities are separate? Did the city manager give Heritage Arrow a free lease for the time they've been there? Did the city lose money by Heritage Arrow moving in sooner? What is the city manager's relationship with Heritage Arrow? How much revenue does Heritage Arrow generate for the city of Freeport? Is it just lease fees? Are there taxes generated for the city in the way of services, labor, or parts? What is the tax rate at the airport? How many aircraft does Heritage Arrow need room for? Why does it take so long to repair the aircraft, and why do they continue to bring aircraft in when they can't finish the work they have? Does Heritage Arrow plan on subleasing the space to make additional revenue? Who benefits from this revenue? City manager, mayor, alderman, alderwoman? Why does Heritage Arrow want to push...
Madam Clerk, your time has exceeded. Okay, that concludes public comment of being signed in, so we will move on to the consent agenda. Consent agenda is considered to be routine in nature and acted as one motion unless there's a member of the council that would like to have something removed for further discussion. Seeing none, the consent agenda is approving to receive and place on file the minutes from the boards and commissions for Fire and Police Commission dated April 23rd, 2024, the Greater Freeport Partnerships monthly report dated May 22nd, 2024. The adoption of Resolution 2024-66, which is the temporary closure for streets on the Colby Smith Memorial 4-mile run dated August 24th. And the finance bills payable in the total of $1,855,545.89, and approval of payroll for pay period ending May 18th, 2024, in the total of $637,370.65. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Clem, seconded by Alderman Shadle. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Sellers,
Aye.
Clem,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Simmons,
Aye.
Stacy,
Aye.
Shadle,
Aye.
and Sanders.
Aye.
The motion passes 7-0.
And item number 5 is a reappointment. Could you please read this?
Gail Clore to the Police Pension Fund Board, effective until April 20th, 2026.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Clem, seconded by Alderman Sellers. Discussion? Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Would a voice vote be okay, Attorney Zito? Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Item number 6 is recognition of service awards. Manager Boyer.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to recognize the fire chief for our first one, Mark Hornbeam.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to invite firefighter paramedic Mark Honorbaum up here, please. Okay, it's my pleasure to introduce and recognize firefighter Honorbaum for his 10 years of service to the community and to the city. His hire date was June 2nd of 2014. Some of the education and certificates that he holds is associate degree in applied sciences and EMS through Highland Community College. He's a paramedic, advanced technician firefighter, fire officer 1, certified fire service vehicle operator, fire apparatus engineer. He's a TEMS team member, works closely with the police department at times. Also a hazmat deployable technician, hazmat team leader. What that means, he has a lot of training hours and a lot of experience with regard to hazmat responses. Some of his accomplishments within the organization: he's the past treasurer and vice president of the IAFF Local 441. He's also the current president of the Firefighters Union. He's here tonight with his family, his wife Stephanie, and 2 children, Kellen and Paisley. And I would say, more important than all these things that he's accomplished, I can say that he's just truly a nice guy. There's nothing that he wouldn't do for the other members of the department. I'm pretty certain his wife can attest to that as well. So. Certificate of appreciation and recognition for 10 years of service. Congratulations. I knew I could talk you into it.
I'd just like to thank everybody for the opportunity to be here. I'd like to thank my wife. She puts up with a lot at home. The kids put up with a lot, being gone, long hours. My parents are also here. My dad got me in the fire service years ago, so without him, I wouldn't be here. I'd like to thank my brothers that came to visit me tonight. Take care of each other and keep each other safe, and I appreciate everything, so thank you.
If I could, I'd like to personally thank Mark and the firefighters, all the extra time they put forward and all the extra time Mark put forward on working for moving the home rule project forward. Thanks to you, we were able to save a bunch of firefighters and a bunch of other people, but thank you for doing over and above what needs to be done, and we really appreciate that. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
I'd like to recognize Kurt Sutman for the presentation of Eric Stromberg.
Thank you. Hard to believe it's 5 years already.
I'm just going to touch on a few of the projects Eric's worked on because there's too many to list here. In his 5 years, he's been a huge part of putting in 3 phone systems, integral to the mobile workforce, tablets and vehicles, police squad cars, helped us get through COVID by supporting remote workers, a wizard of GIS and made possible the interactive maps on our website, and 100 projects that I'm forgetting. Appreciate everything.
Just thank you to the council and to the mayor and city manager for recognizing. I, love to work here, and it's a great place to work. So, thank you.
And lastly, but not least, I'd like to recognize Danny Minders. He couldn't be here tonight, but he has been with the city for 5 years, works on the street department, does a phenomenal job. He's been working with some of the other guys as operating on the paver, and he's really solid individual. So thank you, Danny. I'm sorry you couldn't be here tonight.
Of 2024.
And then we just have an outlay. Again, I am Angie Jansen. I am your airport manager. And I just have an outlay there so that you can kind of, those of you that have not seen the airport, that shows, I've got them listed there as far as which hangar's which. There are some things in here in the report that I give that designates certain hangars, so that way you'll know which hangar's which. Basically, it starts from the south and it goes to the north. So, and that's what the pins are. I don't know if we can, they're going to try to zoom in so we can see it a little more. Before we start the report, first off, I want to thank you, all the council. Thank you for approving that mower. You have no idea. Pat Ingram was the one that ended up suggesting that mower because it was a lot bigger. The deck was. We can get so much more mowed, and with all this rain, it's like, it was always a game at trying to figure out when we were going to mow. So thank you again for approving that, and it has really done good for the airport. Another thing I want to say before we go to this Saturday is Young Eagles. Right now we have 146 kids that we're giving rides to. So come on out. We've got also a 5K run that day, and that starts at 9 o'clock. And then also we have Wrapped in Smoke that's coming out, and so there'll be a food truck. Even if you don't do the 5K, if you don't have kids that want to give a ride, or get a ride, I should say, come on out and, support that and just see what's happening out there. Anyway, now we'll go to the boring stuff. Okay, quarterly report. I just ended up doing January to April pretty much, since I had not give a report live to you guys. The hangar currently occupied, we have 53 of them occupied. Hangars available, we have 12. Total amount that is brought in for those hangars right now is $12,333 a month. Jet fuel that is sold from January to April is 1,517 gallons, which this isn't profit. This is the actual cost that actually brought in then was $7,964.25. That's just something that you guys can then kind of go and buy for the jet fuel. Again, January, February, March are slow months for jets and for anyone for that matter. It's just the weather's not that good. The only other thing I have on this one is things that need to be repaired. There are some things that we need more than others. Our hangars, unfortunately, all of them need something. They've been there since some of them down towards the south, they've been there many, many years. I mean, we're talking 40s and 50s. And there has not been anything really done to those hangars either. And then we move forward. You can see the ones moving forward going to the north. And a lot of them leak. I have them spelled out. I don't think we need to go through all of it. You guys can see that. But a lot of them leak. What's happening, and I have talked to the city about it. Pat has physically come out. There's a ridge cap in K, L, and M, And all of them, that's the far ones right by the road, you'll see, all of them leak pretty bad. The ridge caps are plastic at the top, and they just, through the years, they disintegrate in the sun, and then also the wind is whipping out there. With this mic, I talk with my hands, sorry. The wind's always getting them into them, and it's leaking on their airplanes. I mean, there's one individual that it's really bad. I've tried to move him to a different one. He likes the hangar because he's also got the hangar next to it. But there's birds in there because of the ridge caps also, because they actually move around, they're up and down, and they're defecating on the airplanes, so their airplanes they're always dirty. They're, not in every hangar, but in quite a few of them there is. The big thing is D hangar. You can see D, that's down towards the south more. It's an individual hangar. And I have a picture of D just so that you know what I'm talking about. That I just took this tonight. So you can just see what the hangar that is, it has an issue. It's a big issue. It needs to be tore down. What I was told is that they're talking like, because there's asbestos in it, that we're talking like $30,000 to tear it down. But before that was even brought up, just so you know, I did have someone that was willing to take the thing down, haul it away for free. So then we ended up having to spend $2,000 for this company to come in and check the asbestos. And that company also wanted to tear down that hangar. And that they ended up saying it was 10% asbestos. And that was the lowest amount that you could have. And you had to do something about it. So that's where we're at for that one. It was actually called in. It was probably a year ago already. It was called into the police. Someone flew in. They thought we had wind damage. So when they called me, I said, oh, I know what hangar it is. I know it is. No, there's nothing. We didn't get wind damage. It's a hangar that's coming down, unfortunately. So people flying in see this, and that's not what we want people to fly in and actually look at the airport and see. It's like if we can't take care of our stuff, that's what they're going to think of the city, because that is the gateway to the city. Another one that I have that's on discrepancies that need to be done, and everything's growing. It's growing and growing. That last picture, we have trees. This is at the end of our runway. You can see all of those trees. Every tree that you see there is our property, and they need to come down. Now, there is one spot. All these other trees, there's nothing wrong with them to come down. There is one spot that it is kind of a wetland that's in there, and that is on the project for, I believe, 2026 to change how the water flows and try to change something. That is with our engineers. So that is in the works of trying to do that. The problem with getting the trees down there is right now when it's wet, you're going to get stuck. They ended up having a truck up to the axles, and they had to call Elber to come get them out. So, but these other ones are not in that low line. They are not in that area. There's no reason why not to get those trees down. So that's where we're at in that. That's our main things that we really need to work on. The city did come out. There was a couple of them. I knew I was getting inspected. The state comes out and inspects every 3 years to make sure everything is up to snuff. And there were some that were in the glide path in the safety area that had to come down immediately. I ended up telling Rob, he had these guys come out, and they did take those. There was like 3 of them. They came and took them down right away, which was awesome. So, but these other ones, they're getting taller and taller, so they need attention too. Now there is another area that's on Airport Road as far as taking trees down. The city did come out and take some down on Airport Road also. They've got busy now with everything else, but there are a few more that still need to come down, and there's brush that need to come down. Again, on that 5010 report that I was given from the state, that's one of them that it's getting into the height coming in on our one grass runway. They were getting too long or too tall. So those are out, but we need to clear the rest of them out of there. We also need to clear those out for the air show because the aerobatic box is right where those trees are, and we need to move the aerobatic box over a little bit. And so again, that's the other reason for having all those trees down. So anyway, again, the city has already come out and did that, so I'm hoping that we can figure something out to get these ones at the end of the runway also done. So as far as the report, that's basically all I have right now. I'm sure there's lots of questions, so we'll go with questions.
Okay, so Council, if there's anything you want to ask pertaining to the report? Seeing none, we will move on. Oh, you do?
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay, yes, I do.
Okay.
I was just getting myself.
Alderman
Right.
Sellers.
Yes, I'd like to know how long, I know you said that the state comes out every 3 years, and they inspect and everything has to be to a certain point.
Yeah.
The way, some of the pictures look, I know this didn't take 3 years, did it?
That is correct.
Okay.
No. No, hangars, truthfully, hangars, they don't really care about as far as how they look. What they're looking for is safety areas. They're also making sure that the runway lights are working, our beacons working. They're also looking at our runway, how the runway is, if it needs repaired. Our grass runways, if they're being mowed properly, if they're being mowed in the proper fashion, as far as that we're getting enough length and things like that. That's what they actually look like. Unfortunately, or look at. Unfortunately, hangars,
They don't.
yeah, it's not their thing. They're looking for safety. They basically cover their selves for, because they're the state.
Okay.
Alderman Stacy?
Yes. Can you tell me, okay, you said between January and April, 7,964.25. What is that money used for?
That the city gets, and some of that money goes back to buying the next load of fuel. As far as the others, I'm not even told what it's used for.
Alderman Sanders?
But what you're also saying is those funds is going somewhere, but you have no knowledge of where these funds are going.
That is correct. It's supposed to be for the airport, but I do not see that. I don't
Yeah.
know if that's where it's actually going.
So who do you report to when these things come up about the funds, and who is receiving it, and what department is receiving it? Is it the?
Sorry.
Go ahead. Is it the city manager? Is it the council, or is it what department do we
I go
report
directly to city manager, but as far as finances, it's right at finance department, so Michelle.
Well, so actually, we'll have Director Richter answer that question.
Yes, the fuel money runs through the general fund. So
Do we keep
that's-
track of it?
yes.
Yeah, okay.
Every, the hangar rent has a line item, the fuel has
Okay.
a line item. So we keep track of all of that. But the expenses of the airport outweigh the funds of just the specific airport revenues that are the hangar rent, and the fuel doesn't pay all the expenses of the airport. There's other general funds that are required.
Do the airport receive any additional fundings other than what it generates out there at the airport?
They do receive several IDOT grants.
Letting her answer it.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Go ahead, Director Richter.
Yes, we do receive several IDOT grants, Illinois Department of Transportation, aeronautic
Okay.
grants.
And what are these funds are used for?
Roadway, Angie might be able to tell that one better, but, they fix the runways, they fix some of the lights.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
let
some of the
Angie-
lighting, if we need
Little
upgraded
technical.
stuff. Yeah, if we need upgraded stuff, that is what, she's talking about.
In addition to that, are you being supplemented by any other department as far as any monetary value for the upkeep and maintenances of the
No, it would just be federal and state money, and then what city has to end up doing in their usual 10%.
It's a 10% that we allot for the upkeep of the airport?
For different things. I mean,
different
it's-
things?
Yeah, it's for whatever project is coming up.
Oh, okay, okay.
Director
And-
Richter, do you have more to add to that?
Just to clarify, that's a grant match. So she's
Okay.
talking about, if we get a grant for 100,000, we might need to match 10,000.
Oh, I
So
see.
a 10% match. I
Okay.
think, is there a couple that were 5%?
Yeah, 5%, yep.
As well.
Okay. As as council members, are we getting a static report on the quarterly reports that you're doing on every?
This is the first one that I've done personally. Otherwise, I was giving to, I meet with Rob every month.
You do?
And I've given, yes.
Okay.
Yep, so we can go over what's happening at the airport. And, yeah, he's been given reports also. He does not have the jet fuel and stuff, but,
Okay.
he knows what hangars are, and then also what's happening at the airport.
Right.
As far as if there's issues with certain things or certain tenants or things like that.
Not getting into full details, but are you having issues with the airport out there?
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, the airport's running good.
Is running
The airport itself, yeah.
running okay?
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Alderman Stacy?
Yes, so last year when we budgeted money for the runway to be redone, was that a grant?
Director Richter?
Off the top of my head, I'm going to say yes. With oh, you mean the surface crack, crack seal. Is that what you meant? Mm-hmm. I'll refer to Darren.
So the crack seal program that we did last year out there was MFT funds, so our motor fuel tax funds that we collect from IDOT, that's an eligible expense, surface maintenance treatment, so that crack fill was paid for with that funding last year, along with the street crack fill.
Along with the what?
The other street crack filling we did, it was one big package.
Alderman Sellers?
Yes, I just want to know, do you have anyone that works with you or under you, or are you there, you're just there alone?
Yep. And then I have employees. I have two
Yeah,
employees
that's-
also. Yeah.
oh, okay.
Yep, I have two other employees.
You have two other employees?
Yep.
Okay.
I know there's two different types of fuel, like the 100 LL. How is that ordered per month, and how do that run price-wise, or what does that bring in?
Okay, the 100 low lead that we have out there, that I purchase when we need it. In fact, we're getting a load on Wednesday. But that, again, that's a report that I don't have. Finance director gets those right from the fuel company, so I don't have access to those.
So, do we make a profit on that fuel coming in?
It's very marginal. We're not making buckets of money off of fuel. I would have to analyze that to give you a better answer, and I can do that.
And
I have a question about the farm area. Now, to my knowledge, that area is leased.
That is correct. There's some of it, yep, that is surrounding the airport.
How many farmers do we have?
Off the top of my head, I believe there's like 7. Don't quote me on that, but it's around that. Like I said, it's different ones, and it's not like, there's some that only have like a little triangle, and some have a lot more, and things like that. So it's how it's been cut up through the years.
So that farm area is leased all around or rented out all around?
Yep, to the city, yep.
How much?
Because
do
it's
we-
our it's the city's land, it's the airport's land.
Okay, how much do we make a month on that?
Again, I only know of 2 farmers that actually give me rent checks. And then again, that goes to city. So again, finance director would end up being able to answer that.
So do we have all the farmers leasing this property and bringing money into the airport, or do we just have a couple?
Director Richter?
My records indicate we have the 2 checks that Angie has given us, is $7,000.
But that's the only money?
Correct.
Okay, so what about the other 4 or 5 farmers? They're just getting free range?
Actually, if you look at the graph that I think you sent it to all the council members, it looks like there's 4 different.
That's the only records that I have. That's not up to date. So the city has got them somewhere.
And
Because
who,
they're the ones that deal with the leases. You guys are the ones that take care of the leases.
speaking of,
You don't have the floor yet. Did you want to add something else to that? No? And then I think Alderman Monroe was next.
I just was going to ask, so 7,000, is that a month, a year?
A year.
Okay.
A year?
oh, okay. All of the leases,
Did you want to speak?
I'm sorry.
Alderman Sanders?
I'm sorry. All of the leases that are being presented to the lessees, their reports their lease have been submitted to the council for the hangars that are out there, and how many do we have with lease rental, and what is the annual reporting of the fundings for that year or any year? Do you have records of that?
I was going to say, if there's funding or anything, again, that's finance department. As far as leases go, the leases change all the time when people move in and move out. So,
So who negotiates the terms with any prospective leasee that wants to occupy one of
the
those
city,
hangars?
it's
The
their
city?
lease. Yeah.
Okay, you say it's the city that regulates?
That has it's their lease. Yeah.
Okay.
And as far as
when you refer to the city, who are you referring to?
just as a whole, it's it's the city.
Because
as a
I
whole.
just wanted to know who you're directing.
Again, my direct
information to-
contact is
yeah.
with city manager.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, because we need an update status on those lease reports and how much it gathers for annually budgets and things of that nature. Because I'm looking at a fuel consumption that didn't appeal to me right away, because I'm just wondering, what is the margin error, the margin, but the budget, not the budget, but how much we are generating by providing jet fuel out there. And I just want to know, is it worth our while to be doing that? Do the city end up losing fundings when we're applying or providing any kind of jet fuel or anything for airplane consumptions? Is that something that we're doing that just not show up on the records, where we can see the differentiation of the jet fuel and the budget or the monies that has been accumulated by that? Have we had that opportunity to see that?
Like I said before, I didn't have the comparison of how much we're making on each gallon of jet fuel that we sell. But the city records are kept track revenues and expenses on the fuel, so that can be done.
Okay.
But I think we need to provide fuel at the airport in order for them to come and go. I
Yeah,
don't
but,
think it's something.
well, who regulates the cost? That's what I was really getting at. Who's regulating the cost of jet fuel when the city is paying for it? The taxpayers are paying for it. Who is regulating that whole area?
I haven't, sorry. I don't personally set the cost.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
but who is?
I do. I actually
Okay.
set the cost because it's determined on how much our fuel is at the time, what we purchase it for. And Michelle is always great at getting me that receipt so that I know how much we paid. And then it's a industry as far as what others around are, because you can't charge them $2 extra, you know, just to get money. It's like it has to be competitive. So there is always more that you make than what we bought it for, always.
Okay,
So, but you can't price yourself out of it either.
right, right.
Alderman
okay.
Stacy?
Yes, this Hangar I guess, that's talking about saving $10,000 and something about a door.
That is correct. That door is not like any other door, unfortunately. That was built by an individual. Actually, it was 3 people that built that hangar, and they kind of did it the cheapest way they could. And so it's been there for a long time. But the problem is it's actually pulling away. The pieces are actually pulling away from it, and it's part of the structure on that hangar door.
Right.
So the thing is if it actually, if the wind gets in there, it will take all of it, and it could take the whole door down. We're to the point where we've screwed it in many times. The wood, it's actually wood frame, it's all rotted. It's been there too long, it's all wood, it's all rotted. So we're actually proposing for that $3,500 is steel, doing it with steel tubing, and then just regular aluminum siding. I don't know if it's aluminum or steel, we were kind of back and forth on that. But that's the thing, all of it is volunteer. And they're engineers that are gonna do it. We'll be able to hang it. And actually that 10,000 is conservative. If you look those doors up, exact doors that would fit that, it's well over that.
And so the 3,500 is just the labor?
No, that's actually just material.
Material.
That's all it is, cost to the city.
And Manager Boyer, we have that money coming where? From where?
We budgeted for certain maintenance items for the airport, so it's in the airport budget.
So excuse me.
Alderman Sanders?
Yeah, so you're saying the airport has a budget that it operates out of?
Yes, that's correct. We have a
Okay.
budget for the airport, also a revenue budget for the airport as well.
And anything that needs to be upgraded is also budgeted into that?
We do our best to look at all the expenses for the airport and then put those in front of council for the budget season like we did last year, starting in August.
Okay,
And then once we approve the budget in December, then we would deploy those funds throughout the year as, as needed.
are we near that benchmark? Are we close to it to make that decision again?
Yes, I mean, we budgeted for several items for this year, and we're continuing to work on those. It just turned, we're just in June now, so most of the construction season is just kind of getting starting right now.
Oh, okay.
Alderman Stacy?
Okay, this is saying that there's 24 trees
24 trees?
that needs to come down, needs to be removed. Whose
No.
responsibility?
Actually, that's actually all trees at the end of runway. That's actually 2-4. That's that's actually our runway.
Runway
That's our-
24.
Yep, runway
Okay.
24. Yep. Need
So-
to be removed, and that's the picture that's included. That's
Okay.
all those trees.
So whose responsibility is it to move the trees that do need to be moved and the hedges or whatever done get
that need to
big?
be. Actually, Rob actually said that the street department could end up doing it. Actually, I think there's forestry now that can end up doing that. And so that's what we were.
So it will be the street department, it won't be?
Manager Boyer?
It'd be forestry crew. One of the issues out there is there's a peat bog at the end of the runway, And so for the past several years, or the past couple of years, we haven't had a really hard freeze out there where they could get out there and get their equipment to get those trees out of there. Also, we need some additional equipment so we can remove the trees, because they will block up and dam up the drainage that goes on that's required to flow through that area. So we have been kind of stymied by the conditions. We have taken down the ones that are the most obtrusive, but we're waiting for conditions to allow us to get in there because it's a marsh, basically.
Again, that's only one area. And I can, if you look at the second, that's only one small area. That area is in the middle picture. So those trees, as you can see, there is not that many trees there. But the trees that are up by the hard surface, which is the last one, the last picture.
Yes.
And also the first picture. Those trees are not in that area. There is not a peat bog there. There is no, you can get in there, walk around. I know, because I just walked in there not that long ago. But yes, the one that's by the road, the middle picture, yes, definitely. That's where they got stuck. And that's what we have on the schedule, on our tips, basically to address that and try to get the drainage. And again, that's either, that I believe that's in 2026.
So before the air show, you're saying these trees?
No, that picture I did not get a chance to do. No, there's only a couple trees. They've got most of all those down.
Okay.
So, yep, we're good there.
Alderman Sellers?
Yeah, I'd like to know, Angie, with as much as I'm seeing in these photos with, these and, you're talking about the trees and stuff, I'm saying, why now? I mean, what, have you been wanting these done throughout the years and you just didn't get the?
It just, yeah, because one, they're busy for one. The city has tons of stuff. They're trying to get roads done. They're trying to do other things. And yeah, basically that's what it is. They do as much as they can. They try to do a little bit at a time. And also budget is another thing. Budget is a big thing, is trying to make sure that we have enough money in the budget to address these issues. And that's why the, I don't think I have that in there, but J Hangar, you can see where J is you can see the white roof, the big white roofed one, and then it's just beyond that. It's a box hangar individually. In fact, I think you have the second reading tonight on that one. That one, it's leaking pretty bad in several different spots, and the screws have been taken all out of it at the roof and put back on twice. So the city has tried to do what they can, and we're to the point, I mean, there's holes in it now, and that's why we have a new roof. And so in the budget, there is $30,000 for I'm sorry, I won't say 30,000 because I don't remember quite what it was. 18, I believe, is what they wanted for the roof.
So when you say leak, what's leak? Water?
Water,
leaking?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, like lots of water. Yeah, there's, I mean, in different spots in that one. That one's one of the worst ones. Like I said, there's literal holes. FS came out to address it also about putting a new roof on. And yeah, they said that we can't do any, they put washers in, they've tried everything to plug the holes up, and we're to the point we need a new roof.
So, I'm really glad that you're here and you're answering all these questions. I think this is a great step. However, we can't spend the next 2 hours working on this. This is things that we need to work on. So is there something specific that you want to task Angie with that maybe she can come back another time and address certain things for the council?
I just have one question with the hangars. So if something needs repaired, is it the responsibility of the renter or is it the responsibility of the city?
The city. As of right now, we're trying to change the leases a little bit. We'll see what ends up happening there. We're looking into so that they can address some of the issues, but the roof and the door is the city's thing. Oh, okay. So, and those are the main things, part of the hangar.
The second Monday of the month is the cow, and that's where we have discussion. If we wanted you to come back.
Perfect.
So is that something you would like to make a motion for, to place further discussion on airport to the next committee of the whole?
Yes.
So there's a motion made by Alderman Stacy. Is there a second?
Second.
A second made by Alderman Sellers. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor of having this come back to the next committee of the whole, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I oppose right now at this moment simply because I can't get my question in. In the next adjournment, not adjournment, but the next meeting, I would have forgotten my question. And
Do you have one thing you wanted to ask her yet?
I had time to jot it down. So,
Is there one thing you want to ask her yet? Is
yeah,
that what
it's
you're saying?
relevant to what we've been talking about.
Okay, ask one more question and then we'll move on.
What I wanted to know was those trees, either north or south planes are entering either north or south, or you have direct communication with them in terms of which part of the road or the 24 that they can land on. Are you in direct communication with these guys?
As far as who comes in and uses
Yeah.
the airport,
Yeah.
they are not in a safety zone or anything. We already took those out.
Okay.
So they're fine that way, but they're getting taller and taller, and eventually they will be.
So
right now, they are not in a safety area, or they're not in the way of coming into any of the runways.
yeah, because I was wondering whether or not the trees are being obstruction to.
Yeah, nope, they are not.
Okay, so that's not an immediate emergency.
It's not
but-
emergency, but
yeah.
it is, we need to get it done because, I mean, they're, every year, you know, they
Okay.
grow a whole lot more. But yeah, that is something, it's on the plan. And like I said, city manager has already addressed that. He knows that, and so does his workers, so,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
Alderman Monroe?
Awesome. Thank you, Mayor. I've got 3 questions that pertain to issues that are on the agenda tonight. Number 1, who sets the hangar leasing fees for each of the various hangars at the airport?
So that's usually, it's the city. So, and it's, you know, it's been set. And again, I do have some input, airport manager does have some input on that, on most.
Okay. Follow-up question to that is, so who would approve leases? Who would approve, where would the leases go through? Who approves changes to the leases as well, as far as both pricing, terms, and so on and so forth
As
within
far as
that
terms and
agreement?
stuff would end up having to go through Attorney Zito or his firm and stuff in order to change things.
Would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, and just so with regards to that, I don't think in the past there hasn't been necessarily, or at least as far as I know, there hasn't necessarily been a uniform process as far as the leases go. So what I've proposed is that, and in conversations with the city manager and with Angie that day that we met, that because it is a lease and leases get approved by ordinances, that everything start coming back before the council to approve the lease there, and that would then be all the terms, the rent amounts, and the such, so they would be approved by the city council ultimately. Now, that being said, we also have kicked around the idea that, hey, sometimes you might just have an extension, so maybe if the council wanted, that you guys could put in a mechanism that says, hey, you guys don't have to bring an extension back to us if all the terms are the same. Maybe all we're changing is the rent amount, and you guys could set a schedule or something to say that, hey, if it's going to be renewal, as long as you bump the rent by 3%, 5%, whatever you guys decide as a council, that could then save some time of having to have every single lease, every time it was up for renewal, come back before you guys. But at least initially, we should go through, hey, get one full cycle of all the leases coming back before you guys. Then you guys can contemplate whether or not at renewal time, is there a way to make it a little more efficient so that everything doesn't have to go through council, but there was still oversight there. So that's kind of been what's been kicked around so far.
Did you have one more question then?
He can ask his if it pertains to what we just spoke about.
Yeah, the oversight in regards to the leasing is concerned. And it sounds like, to me, that leases could bypass council, and we as council don't have a chance to determine or make changes to those leases to determine if we want to keep it at a certain rate to make those changes. But the way you're stating it, it does not give the council the benefit of the doubt on changing the terms of the lease. And we must have that mechanism put in place so that we have the options to raise or lower the leasing costs of any rental property. And so I'm listening to you, but I'm like, are you saying what I think you're saying, that they can bypass council
Attorney Zito.
No, I'm saying that all the leases actually need to come to council first. And then once you guys have seen, let's say, lease A, you've approved lease A, you've approved the terms. Right now, let's say lease A was for a term of 2 years. At the end of 2 years, if you guys want, not that you have to, but if you guys decide, you know what, for the renewal, we don't need to see this lease again. We saw it 2 years ago. As long as you guys are adjusting the rent to typically increase the rent to account for inflation, you guys can come up with a mechanism or a way to do the renewals if you guys want to handle it. That way it doesn't have to come back before council. But I'm saying right now, it was my suggestion that all the current leases, when they're up, whenever, because some of these leases might be a little bit older or whatever it is that, and haven't been before this council for a long time, actually, that I haven't even seen myself there because they're that old, that everything needs to come back before you guys at least once now. Then you guys can figure out what you guys want to do as far as renewals go in the future.
Right. Okay.
Okay, so, yeah.
One final question. And this is something, I don't, if you can bring back, or the city manager or finance director, this pertains to the leased lots and property outside of the airport, around the airport. If we could have that brought back, because it sounds like a lot of money is being left on the table. The comment was made by Michelle Richter, who basically said we're operating at a net negative. That might be, but honestly, it probably shouldn't be if we were collecting all of the land lease dollars that should be coming in. And I think a rough estimate, $500 to $1,000, is a pretty good, about $750 as an average. The number of acres that are out there, we're missing a significant amount of money, and I'm very concerned that the 2 leases that are paying, the other 4 or 5 are not, and that's a major problem. Yes.
Manager Boyer.
Thank you for that, Alderman Monroe. And yes, we will be doing that. We just recently GIS'd all the parcels that are attached to the airport, and we'll be going through that, and we'll bring the a solution to you in short order.
Not sure whether that'll be ready for the cow, but it is on the.
That's what I was
it
about
is
to
on
get
the,
at. It's just not to Monroe,
so
it's for the cow, right?
We'll have more discussion with the cow, and I would encourage you to read your report and write down some questions that you might have. Was there something you want to address yet?
I just want to make a statement, and it can be addressed next week. We discussed the last week of May, we discussed Hangar J and G. However, there was 4 that was supposed to come to council, not just 2. And why M10 and C3 was left out, I would like information about for the cow.
I don't have any information on either one of those leases. No one's approached me for them. Do you know anything, Angie?
Yeah, they were given to Dovey at the same time.
Okay.
You asked for Hangar G, and then I gave them to Dovey.
Okay, I have not seen those yet.
Okay, so again, encourage you to write down your questions and take this up for next Monday. Thank you, Angie. We appreciate you being here.
Thanks. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to item number 7, which is the second reading of ordinance 2024-28. Could you please read this?
Ordinance authorizing a lease with Heritage Aero for Hangar J at Albertus Airport.
Manager Boyer.
Thank you, Your Honor. As we discussed at the last council meeting, Heritage Aero has approached the city for a short-term lease with J Hangar. In the interim, I recommend we move forward with this lease. It's till August or October. I'm sorry, till October. Take that back, August. I would encourage council to move forward with that so that we can go ahead and move forward.
Questions?
You said this was for what month?
It's a four-month lease. So May through.
Okay, to my knowledge, if I've done my homework, Heritage Aero already have 4 hangars, or do they have 3?
Angie says 4.
I can't tell you between 3 and 4.
This
They have
is
several.
4?
Angie said 4.
This is,
That is correct.
This would make 4. This would make 5. I'm aware of there being some issues with gas and electric bills not being paid. And that's a concern. If you can't afford what you got, why are you going for more?
Manager Boyer?
I believe they've requested to, they don't plan to heat the hangar, but they are paying the electric bill.
On the past months, with what they've already had from this past or this current contract, they're paying electric?
Well, they have electricity, and I believe they're paying that through yes, they are paying the electric bill on J Hangar.
Director Richter, do
No,
you
I'm
know?
not talking about Jay. I'm talking about the other 4.
I can't speak to the other 4 right now. I know O, they're paying the gas and electric on O, but as far as the other smaller ones, I'm not aware.
Director Richter?
No, I would have to look that up if they're paying.
Alderman Sanders?
Seems like we may be dropping the ball here in regards to who's monitoring whether or not electric bills and any kind of utility bills are being paid, and how do we find records and track who's paying out there at those hangars. We should have a knowledge base here in the council, understanding exactly what hangars are paying in utilities, whether the taxpayers are losing any dollars in the process of not knowing. We're not knowing any of that information, and I think it's doing us a disservice not to know exactly what it is that is being paid to the city or not in regards to utilities. And we need to know what every hangar is doing when it comes to any utility bills or whatever the case is. We need to know, and we need to see records. We don't want this to become a verbal kind of thing. We want to actually see it materialize before our eyes, that everybody is above board paying their fair share of their utilities.
Manager Boyer?
Absolutely. We will get that together for you with that request. There are quite a few. I mean, as Angie reported, there's 53 hangars out there, and we will gather all that information and get it for you at a special meeting if that's what it needs to be.
Alderman Stacy, did you have something pertaining to the lease?
Pertaining to this?
Yeah, the lease.
Yes.
Okay.
I think until we're able to find out more with the 4 that is already being leased, before moving forward with the 5th one, I think we need clarity, and that this should be put on hold till the cow for further discussion.
Is that a motion?
I would like to make a motion that we put this on hold till the cow, and hopefully we can receive further information and try to make a little more sense out of this.
Manager Boyer?
In
Actually,
general,
thank
I would tend to agree with you, Alderman Stacy, but I do want to mention that this is a short-term lease. Its period is over in a few months, and we will gather that for you, but I would ask that we not hold up someone who's in the process of operating out the airport just to gather information. I'll be happy to get that for you, but this lease will be over in a few months, and we'll have a chance to review all of this stuff in between now and then, so I would implore you to continue, go ahead and approve this for now, and we'll gather all that for you in the next weeks.
This is,
So there's a motion on the floor.
yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, so pertaining to the motion of moving this second reading to the cow, is there discussion on that piece only? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll on that motion of moving it to the cow?
Sellers,
Aye.
Clem,
No.
Monroe,
Aye.
Simmons, Stacy,
Aye.
Shadle,
No.
Sanders.
Aye.
Currently, it is 5-2. The motion passes.
Okay, so we will move this on to next week's meeting. We'll move on to item number 8, which is the second reading of ordinance 2024-29. Could you please read this?
Ordinance authorizing a lease with Derek Squires for Hangar G at Albertus Airport.
Manager Boyer.
Thank you, Your Honor. Again, asking for council approval for leasing the south half of Hangar G to Derek Squires for the amount of about $1,000 per month for maintenance activities that he's already engaged in.
Discussion, Alderman Stacy.
So this is one hangar, or do he have several as well?
I think he relocated to this hangar and he's using about half of it. He's using half of the hangar.
And it's 1,000 rent per month.
Yes.
And does this have gas and electric?
I'd have to defer to Angie on that, but I believe so.
And he have no problem with paying that?
Actually, right now, the city is paying for it because he only has half of it, and we're opening the door in the winter and stuff more than he ever does. So, but he's looking for a long-term lease, and things will change for that.
So right now, this lease is for how long?
Till the end of the year.
At the city's expense for gas and electric?
That's correct.
Oh. How did,
Oh, Manager Boyer.
Point of correction, this is for a term of 1 year, not less than 1 year.
1 year?
Yes.
And the city will pay the gas and electric for 1 year?
As I understand it, this is part of second generation. They're part of their compensation, and they do use this hangar for other activities that aren't related to aircraft maintenance. I think it's storage of our winter snow removal equipment and that type of thing.
Angie, if you want to give any more comments, please go to the microphone. Just a minute, she wants to answer.
I got a,
Wait, baby.
okay.
So, yeah, actually, that was done he's been in there since January. They're just bringing this forward to you now. So it's from January to the end of this month. Or, I'm sorry, the end of this year.
Yeah.
To December. And then he wants to have a long-term one continuing on. That is the reason why city has paid for heat and electric. Because again, yes, that is supposed to be my hangar, but I tried getting more money for you guys. In fact, I got you $12,000 a month. Excuse me, a year. So, because he ended up he needed a bigger hangar, his business is building, and he actually wants that whole hangar starting the beginning of the year.
Okay.
But,
Alderman Sanders.
but that leaves the city hanging with a utility bill for the year.
That is correct, till the end of the year.
Okay, and
Just to
is
the
that
end.
prorated to the city for the difference? Is he gonna, are we just
No,
giving
'cause
him?
I was the one that I ended up controlling the heat in there.
Yeah.
And as far as the electric, so it's like it was minimal cost for the city. It's still a hangar, but
It's still costing the
that
taxpayers.
is correct. But again, that is because I have half of that hangar. And it's to store city equipment in.
Yes, that's
Okay.
what I was trying to say.
Okay.
It's storing the
It's storing it's the lawnmowers and whatever.
So how does the city equipment ends up at the airport?
They
that-
go to mow the grass?
I
Yeah,
know,
that's-
I
that's
understand.
how we plow
Well,
the
that's
snow,
what.
That's how we mow the
yeah.
grass. That's
Okay.
how we.
That's where they,
So this is where we store it.
That's correct.
City's
Yep.
equipment,
That
okay.
is that is the airport's equipment. It doesn't. For an example, like the snowplows, they can't come into town
Mm-hmm. Right.
to use them. We cannot use salt at the airport.
Right, okay.
And we don't want the city trucks coming out there because they drop salt that is highly corrosive to airplanes.
Got you.
Just for
Okay,
an example.
okay.
Darren.
Yeah. So we keep equipment at the airport all year round, and it's only used at the airport. And the agreement with the airport is the city owns the equipment, and Angie operates the airport. So everything at the Freeport Airport or Albertus is the city's.
Okay, that's understandable. but the city still maintains those. We still have a maintenance yard that would maintain.
Yeah,
those.
when the equipment needs maintenance, either our maintenance team either goes out there and maintains it, or they bring it
Oh,
back
okay.
down to the city
yard.
yards on island and maintain it.
Okay.
As needed.
All right. Okay.
Okay, so pertaining to this particular lease, if there's no
Another
further.
item I have.
Yeah.
So the city equipment, just so everybody knows, needs to be stored in a heated building. And that came through the Public Works Department because we had too many issues with the equipment being stored in uncontrolled confinements out there, freezing, lots of winter issues with it. So it was the Public Works direction to Angie to make sure that our equipment was stored in heated buildings, which saved us tremendous amount of maintenance time trying to get things going over the winter months.
So, so what are we doing to us? Are we assessing the conditions of that environment to determine what kind of budget we want to set for those things that are creating problems for maintenance equipment and anything else that is exposed to the weather?
Keeping it stored in a heated building
Yeah, I know.
solved the problem, and that's what Angie's talking about.
But the conditions of those buildings, I didn't see a door on those buildings as far as equipment is concerned to keep anything heated or.
That isn't the hangar that they're normally kept in.
Oh, it isn't.
No, it's a heated hangar.
Okay, because I'm looking at a picture with city's
That's not the one.
equipment in it.
That's not the
Different
correct
hangar.
That's not the current one. Okay, well,
That's a little drafty.
yeah, it would be. All right, okay then, gotcha.
Okay, so I believe we're at a place of voting, so Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Sellers,
Aye.
Clem,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Simmons,
I'm sorry, I just got one more question, real quick. This person is already in this hangar, correct, since January?
Has been since January.
Okay, yes.
Stacy,
Aye.
Shadle,
Aye.
Sanders.
Aye.
The ordinance passes 7-0.
And item number 9 is the second reading of ordinance 2024-30. Could you please read this?
Ordinance amending Chapter 464 Public Nuisances.
Thank you, Chief Schanberger.
Thank you. In 1998, the City of Freeport adopted Chapter 464, Public Nuisances. The purpose of this ordinance was for the preservation of the public peace, health, safety, and welfare of the general public, and was intended to address a public nuisance created by individuals operating motor vehicles on the streets and highways of the city. There are 8 violations that could result in a vehicle being towed and impounded for a public nuisance violation. Those violations are as follows: illegal sound amplification system, illegal window tint, city ordinance curfew, mandatory required liability insurance, underage possession of alcohol, unlawful possession of drugs, other prohibited weapons, and fleeing or attempting to elude a peace officer. The process of enforcing the P&V ordinance begins with when the driver of a vehicle is found to be in violation of any of the above listed statutes or ordinances. The vehicle then can be towed and impounded if the owner is present, or there's been a previous violation of the P&V ordinance by the same vehicle. If the owner of the vehicle wishes to obtain the vehicle before the impound is fulfilled, the owner can pay a $200 administration fee. For the calendar year 2023, staff recognized an influx of arrests and citations issued to individuals for driving while license was suspended or revoked and driving without a valid driver's license. The statistics for 2023 are: for no valid driver's license, there were 102 violators and 8 repeat offenders. For driving while license was suspended, there were 180 violators and 19 repeat offenders. And for driving while license was revoked, there was 56 violators and 8 repeat offenders. Staff compared the City of Freeport P&V ordinance to similar ordinances in other municipalities. The 3 comparison municipalities do not have an impound time limit and requires the owner to pay the administrative fee to get the vehicle out of impound. The following show comparison municipalities and the approved administrative fees. City of Belvedere has a $300 administrative fee and no impound time frame. City of Dixon, $300 administrative fee and no impound time frame. in the city of DeKalb, a $500 administrative fee and no impound time frame. In conclusion, staff believes raising the administrative fee to $300 and adding the ability to tow and impound a vehicle for the offenses of no valid driver's license and driving while license was suspended or revoked could deter this behavior and increase public safety by giving officers a tool to remove troublesome vehicles from their roadways. The request is to amend Public Nuisance Ordinance 464 to the following: increase the administrative fee from $200 to $300 and add the offenses of no valid driver's license or driving while license was suspended or revoked to the P&V list of towable violations under Chapter 464, public nuisance, with a 5-day impound and a $100 to $500 fine.
Thank you. Any further questions on this? Alderman Stacy.
That $100 to $500 fine would be per day, per impound?
No, the fine would be whatever it would be assessed. When I brought this to Cal the first time, I asked, it would be a one-time thing. It's something that could be assessed. It's in uniform with the other offenses that are listed, the other 8 offenses. And when I asked the city attorney if he was imposing any fines when these go to city court, and the state's attorney and the state's attorney's office and the city attorney both told me that they haven't ever imposed any of those fines.
Okay, I have a follow-up, if that's okay. If someone was to be stopped with no license or suspended license, would their car automatically be impounded?
It would have to be if the vehicle that was being operated, if the person who was operating the vehicle was a registered owner, it could be towed and impounded, or if that person was operating someone else's vehicle, then we would, for the first time, would issue a P&V warning to the registered owner of that vehicle before it could be towed and impounded.
Okay, would it be treated the same across the board, or would the responding officers have the option of deciding if it stays there or if it's impounded?
There would be, there's factors that weigh into that, like the call load and how busy the officers are and things like that. So it would be discretion of the officer.
I don't like that. I think it needs to be the same for everybody across the board.
Sure. Well, I just can't guarantee that would be the case, so I understand.
Alderman Sanders.
Yeah, Chief. I'm looking at the preservation of the public nuisance kind of thing to preserve what we already have in our ordinances and things of that nature. Have you did a reassessment or evaluation of that, of the preservation of all of the variables that is being used here? Like, for instance, homeowners, nuisance, people that's lording or have littered or whatever the cases may be on these properties, of the residential properties. How do we stand with that? Because that does play into safety, health, and all of that other kind of thing. Am I correct?
Well, if you're referring to that first paragraph, I mean, I kind of just took that from the ordinance because that was kind of, that's how the ordinance reads. That
Right.
was the reason why it was created. So those aren't my words. I took it from the ordinance.
So is it the discretion of the city to determine whether or not there's a violation that's been brought up on the city or the resident or whatever the case may be?
Well, these are for vehicles. They're not for houses.
Yeah, I see that, but because I noticed that all targeted vehicles, but I didn't see that's what the first paragraph or the background of it is referring to. But when you say nuisance, that's a broader paintbrush. When you say nuisance, that's the reason why I'm asking you in regards to whether it could be residential, a hazard in the neighborhood, or anything like that, because you're just referring to vehicles after we have gotten past whatever the first paragraph. We're not talking about the preservation of the public peace or health or safety and welfare, and that's in there. And I'm looking at this, how How far does this nuisance spread? Does it cover all of those bases of the nuisance, and how do we define it in order to determine whether or not a homeowner is in violation, whether or not a community is in violations of a nuisance, or whatever the case may be? How do we define that so we can narrow it down to one specific thing that a resident can violate and be held accountable for it?
That's a totally different ordinance. This is just the.
This is not about nuisance.
Well, about vehicles.
This is about towing and impounding. You can't tow and impound a house.
Yeah, but I see that in this paragraph. I see all of
Go
the
ahead.
things that I'm talking about in this paragraph, and it has nothing to do with mentioning vehicles.
Sure it does. You can't,
I can't see it. That's what I'm saying.
Attorney
I
Zito.
don't see it.
So so we have other ordinances that deal with property nuisances, things that constitute a nuisance if we're talking about real estate property. Okay, so that's a completely different section of the code, right? And we're saying that if, for example, if you have junk and debris in your yard, or if you have grass that is 15 inches long, those are going to be a form of nuisance. These happen to be property nuisances, but they're a nuisance. So you aren't allowed to do that. What this particular ordinance says that, hey, if you are driving with if you have a unreasonably loud sound amplification, if you have improperly tinted windows, if you have unlawful possession of drugs while in a vehicle, all these 8 enumerated offenses that we also then want to add, driving while suspended, driving while revoked, driving without a license to, that if you're doing these other sorts of illegal acts, this is going to be a different type of nuisance. It's a nuisance because you shouldn't be doing it, just like you shouldn't have long grass, but these are like car-related nuisances. And that's what this ordinance is about.
Well,
Alderman Monroe?
I didn't read it that way. It wasn't read that way. So I can interpret that whole thing that we just went through. We left things out, but we targeted driving, license, and things of that nature, when we should be covering all of the.
Okay, if you read the very first sentence of the ordinance is about traffic code and vehicles. That's the very first sentence. Alderman Monroe, did you have something you wanted to add?
I do, Madam Mayor. I don't know if I'm the only one looking at this way. I've got some pretty significant challenges getting past this list. When I look at 1 through 4, I see illegal sound amplification system, illegal window tint, city ordinance curfew, mandatory required liability insurance. Those are a different level of activity, and it could be criminal, it may not be, right?
Correct.
5 through 8, underage possession of alcohol, unlawful possession of drugs, other prohibited weapons, fleeing or attempting to elude a peace officer. What I see in this list is an attempt to normalize significant crimes with crimes of very minor,
Misdemeanors.
yeah, whatever the word is. They're very minor as far as the nuisance of the city goes. And I see it disproportionately targeting a certain ethnicity in this city. And I've got a problem with that from a lot of different standpoints. And I've studied some law. I'm not a lawyer. Heaven forbid I would ever become a lawyer. But I see these things, and I question a parent trying to raise a child who makes a mistake. The next thing you know, this goes from just being a, slap on the hand, parents deal with it, it gets managed, to the car's been towed, you can't get the car back with all these fees, and already the people of Freeport are struggling financially, and this is going to affect the bottom 60% of our society financially. And that becomes a major issue. Where I don't have a problem is where we want to target those who are committing the serious crimes and violent crime. If you're running around with guns, if you're running with drugs, if you're fleeing and eluding the police, underage possession of alcohol, I could probably argue that one. There's no DUI here. There's no, these things are left to, and I see the points that my fellow aldermen are making, is that officer discretion puts us in a position where this could be effectively applied disproportionately to certain people. And that's wrong. And that's wrong from the constitutional standpoint, that's wrong from a societal standpoint, that's wrong from what I think Freeport really wants to be. And I don't know how we've gotten all of this plugged into one ordinance, but this one really bothers me. And I've struggled with this for a few weeks now looking at it.
Can I respond to that real quick?
Yeah, sure.
So, yeah, I mean, if you look at what we're proposing here, the no valid driver's license and the driving while suspended or revoked, the impound time on that would be the lowest out of all of them. And the reason why DUI is not on there is because the state allows us per statute to tow vehicles that have been operated by someone who's driving under the influence. So we're able to remove those vehicles from the roadway.
Alderman Sellers?
Yes, I'd like to just say, I do understand what you're talking about, Alderman Monroe, with some of the, from 5 to 7, or even the whole, 8. I understand it. But we have a problem right now here in our small community with gun violence, and gun violence amongst our young. And just was it Wednesday? I had saw a bunch of kids at a home, and it was a lot of young kids, and kids of probably every nationality was around there, but it was a lot. And my spirit just told me something ain't right. And I called Chief, and I told him, I said, something ain't right about this address. And he said, oh, I'm fishing. And I said, oh, enjoy yourself. I never went the extra mile. Well, that night, 3 hours later, we get a text from a city manager, a 16-year-old was shooting. I just thanked and praised God nobody got killed. That would have been on me. That would have been in my mind of thinking if I would have just told and did the next step. So I understand that, but we got to get some type of control, because I do think that we're so lax that we've got so many young kids that are just out there, and you're right, wayward and everything. So that what scares me about some of the things that you were, possession of alcohol, possession of a weapon. Maybe we could have caught some of those things, and the young man would not be in the trouble that he's in now if first of all, if I would have took the step that I should have taken, instead of just telling Chief, enjoy your time and go on, I should have called to the police station. And I'm sorry for that, but I thank God nobody got hurt. So that's what my issue is with. We have to start cutting down and not just slapping hands, but letting them know that, some of this, we got to get it under control. So that's just my thought process.
Alderman Monroe?
Yeah, I think you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. I, as a teenage kid, drove around with my radio playing way too loud. And I look back on that, and I say, here's the situation. But I didn't run with guns or drugs or any of that. And I think you hit the nail on the head. Those serious ones we have to be serious about. If we find illegal drugs, we find illegal guns, we find, alcohol in the car, back when we were younger, they would have poured it out on the side of the road. That would have been the end of it, and maybe called your parents. But if you've been drinking, you weren't driving home. It was those types of things. But I think the point is that when you take a minor offense and you group it in with very, very serious offenses, it lessens I'm struggling with words right now, what it is those serious offenses really mean. And that's the problem I've got with this ordinance, because we've plugged this in with the same ones. And I want our law enforcement to have all of the powers that they can to deal with those hard crimes, because we need to thwart all gun violence, any violence like that. But I think of all the young kids I see driving around town. They've got the windows down and the back windows vibrating. I get it, but I also don't see the need to tow their vehicle and slap $200 in fees and administrative fees, and that's a money grab. That's in my opinion. But I'm agreeing with you on 5 through 8. I'm disagreeing on 1 through 4.
Alderman Sanders.
Yeah. Chief, do we have a committee in place that does assessments to these types of ordinances to give us the right clarity and interpretations to them? So, and then they can make reevaluations, give their insights to how we're doing things in the city, as opposed to just having an ordinance that may have been updated or not updated, for changes to be reevaluated and changes to be made. Do we have some sort of a committee in place to do these types of things, to assess what it is in the department when it comes to the citizens of Freeport, when it comes to police staffing and things of this nature, and patrolling, and who gives an oversight to our police department to determine whether or not we're in appliance with the city, far as these ordinances are concerned, because the interpretation varies a lot here, you know, and things can be changed for the better. That's what I'm getting at. And I think a committee, if we had one, could make that assessment to make changes to help us to keep things stable, or given more information and communication with the city, because we're sitting here not knowing all of the things about this particular ordinance and how far you can go with a particular ordinance, and I think we need to address that issue, you know. So,
Chief, you want to say anything with that?
As far as a committee, no, but I mean, we have a process in place when we want to change an ordinance, and that we're going through that process right now. As far as oversight, all of our, anything that an officer does, any of their work, you know, they have a supervisor, and we check their work and make sure that things, we don't want people out there doing bad work. So, yes, so there is supervision, there is oversight, and then when we want to change something, that we go through a process like we are right now.
Okay.
Alderman Shadle.
I think the thing that needs to be emphasized on this is the fact that this towable offenses are something that can be done, not something that will be done. The kid that gets caught with a couple cans of beer isn't going to get his car towed. Unless they catch him the third time with a couple cans of beer. And then he's not getting the message, so then he's going to get his car towed.
Yeah.
The fees that are involved with that, puts teeth into it. The changes that are being proposed by the chief are defended by his numbers of reoccurring suspended and revoked drivers getting stopped the second, the third time. They're not going to get caught the fourth time if you take their car away from them. I feel like, I think we're scrutinizing this a little too tight. It's not something that's going to be 90% of this ordinance has been in effect, and people aren't getting their cars towed every day. But in the case he wants to add is a pretty serious offense, suspended, revoked drivers. There's a reason why they lost their license. They shouldn't be driving. They get caught once, now they get out and they get caught again. We ought to give them the power to take the car.
Alderman Simmons.
Okay, so I can get behind this if it targeted repeat offenders, and it targeted it revoked or suspended. But on, like you said, it's at officer's discretion, that it can't be your first time and you can get your car towed. Maybe you have not experienced that, Shado, but I have. So I think that if the wording was different and it targeted repeat offenders, and put that it's excluded, like your first time, you may not even know, you might not have gotten that letter, which is not our problem, but still, you shouldn't get your licenses or your car towed for that. And in most cases, like Monroe said, it will impact single moms who maybe didn't go get their license renewed, they didn't have the money at the time to go get it renewed, whatever. So if the wording was different and we targeted specifically repeat offenders, I would be totally behind it. As is, I am not. I am not behind the towing for your speakers or tent, because it does target a certain demographic. Like, you know, my daughter has been pulled over for her tent several times. It's in legal limits, but that still gives them, they use that as an excuse to pull her over. So I see how it can be mismanaged at officers' discretion. So with the wording as is why I cannot support it like that, but if we target repeat offenders, I'm all for it.
Well said.
Alderman Clem.
Madam Mayor, this ordinance has been into effect for a considerable period of time. All the police chief is doing is asking to raise the amounts to be equal to other cities around us. If we vote this down, unless you completely vote the ordinance out, it's going to remain saying exactly the same things. So the police chief has come to us and just asked us to increase this. It wasn't a real debate about what it covers. If you want to have a real debate about what it covers, then you need to open up that bag of worms. And by the way, that group that does oversee all that stuff, it's called the city council. So this has come before the city council at one period of time, has been voted on, and has been accepted. So that's all we're really asking for at this time. If you want to take a look at the ordinance, then the proper way would be do it legally, go through the mayor, or go back in the ordinances and say, we'd like to review this ordinance. But as it is, you know, all he's asking to do is raise the cost on it. Nothing else. Thank you.
If there's nothing further, Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Now I'm a little,
Sellers?
because I do understand what Alderman Simmons is saying, but I do understand what Alderman Clem is saying. So I'm saying yes to raising the fees. Yes.
So that was an aye?
Yes.
That's your vote, sorry.
To
Okay.
raising the fees.
So is that what we're voting on?
Yes.
Just the raising?
Raising the fees.
Wait.
Okay, we need some clarity here.
Oh, okay.
All right. So what's before you guys is the ordinance as presented, right? And what that ordinance accomplishes, the proposed amendment is one, you're raising the fees from 200 to 300, I believe. And then you're adding 2 additional offenses to the list of offenses that qualify for the impound, which are, or 3 offenses, excuse me, driving while license suspended, driving while license revoked, driving without a license having been issued. Okay? So you're adding now to that list.
So you can't just vote for one. You got to vote for it all.
Yeah, so, but I do agree for those. I just don't agree for the last, I gotta find it, I'm sorry. I don't agree with the top ones, that with the tinted windows and the loud speakers, but I do want to say yes to the ones that we are adding.
So
Yes.
So
Yes.
to that point then, the ones about the tint and the loud music, that's already currently
already on there.
in our code. So if you guys want to revisit that and say in a different ordinance to say we want to get rid of that stuff, then you guys can do that. But what's before you guys right now is to increase the impound fee from 200 to 300, and then add the additional 3 offenses to the list, and then designate, how long the impound is and et cetera.
So if we vote on this right now, we're accepting these offenses, again, at the discretion of the officers.
So Chief, if I heard you right earlier, you're saying that there is a certain amount of officer discretion as to whether or not to issue the ticket for the offense, correct?
No, to follow through with the tow.
Oh,
Like I said,
okay.
there's factors that play into it.
Okay,
call
gotcha.
Things like that.
Then-
So I can't guarantee a vehicle would always be towed or not always be towed. It depends on the situation before them.
Got it. Okay, so then, yeah, you're right.
But you also said it depends on the time, if other things are happening, and basically the officer's discretion.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so,
That's not changed. That's not a change. That's the way it's always been.
That's how it's
Yeah.
always been.
okay, so can it be changed?
Yeah, in
You can
another,
change anything you want, but
Yeah.
before you right now is the
Right.
way it was. So
Okay.
But would you be willing to change the language so that it's fair across the board and not determine? You guys, I'm just gonna keep it real.
no.
You know, the white man would get off and the black man would be impounded. Let's just keep it real. It has to be, if it's your first offense, the same across the board. If it's your second offense, the same for everybody across the board. If it's your third offense, not at the discretion of what else is happening or the officer deciding who he let go and who he don't, who he impound and who he don't. So we got to look at this.
Alderman Sellers.
Alderman,
No,
Would-
can't think in my mind.
go ahead, Larry.
What I'm saying is, as soon as I can jump in here, like double dutch, you know.
Okay, are you on the phone or talking to me?
No, I'm talking to you.
Okay.
I'm
So
talking
would
to
you
the
like to have the
council.
floor? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I was
Okay.
waving my hand.
Okay, I
you didn't
wasn't-
See me
I-
waving my hand?
Yes, and then
Okay.
I apologize. I
Yeah.
misunderstood what you were getting at. So go ahead,
Yeah,
Alderman Sanders.
When the discretion part comes in, or anything comes in, as far as the listing of the nuisance that I'm looking at, that can pertain to just about any one of them at any given time, at the discretion of the officers who wants to enforce any of those things. For instance, if I'm having a park event or neighborhood event and we're playing music in the street or whatever the case is, and a neighbor, somebody in the resident start complaining about that particular sound that you're playing in your music event, they call the cops and they'll come over and tell you, I'm sorry, you guys got to cut the music down or cut the music off in your event. Now, this is at the discretion of the police department. That is considered a nuisance as well.
Okay, but not under this ordinance.
Yeah, well, the thing about it is nuisances is when you're out here on Walnut Highway at the racetrack, when you can hear the racetrack running all the way downtown. If that's not a nuisance, I don't know what is, when it was there, at that time, when it was there. And not only that, you still have vehicles that is a nuisance as we speak, just as if though they are race cars through the neighborhood. And people can complain about that and things of that nature, but nothing is gonna be done about it because it has occurred and no longer is there. But the fact of the matter is, if you have a residential event or a park event or whatever the case is, the police can come by and enforce nuisances that someone was offended by your sound, your noise, or whatever you create for your event. Those are the things that we're talking about. I mean, it just got to be spelled out in terms where, like you say, it's all across the board. It's not just for one event or individuals. It's got to be for everything. And the language you're spoken of, Council, is what is misinterpreted here. We're interpreting things and giving leeways to people, to officers who can just use their own opinion and discretion to determine whether or not you're violating nuisances. So That's what it was getting at, and I feel the same way, that we need to look at that a little bit more, and I've been saying it for, since this opened up, that it has a lot of variables, and so we need to, take a second look at that. That's all I have to say.
Alderman Sellers?
I wanted to say, Alderman Stacy, I'm with you on this. The thing about all of this is that, and to change it and make it straight across the board, 1 through 4, it's already being done. It's being done at, instead of 300, it's being done at, I'm just gonna say 200. So it's already out there. We're just saying they want to add, which I agree, add the 5 through 8 with the alcohol and you get caught with drugs or what?
No, those are already there.
Those are already there too.
They're everything.
Yeah, they're
What
already
did you
there.
say were added?
We are adding that, look, just go down a little bit further where it says no valid driver's license.
Oh,
and
okay, I
driving
see it
while
now.
being suspended.
Okay,
Those
so
are
no
what's being
valid
added.
driver's license.
Yeah, 1 through 8's already there.
Okay, so it's
currently
no
in our
valid
code.
driving and driving while suspended license. Okay,
Those are
got
what's
it.
being added.
But I still agree with those because, you got a lot of people riding around with not a valid driver's license. And so those aren't bad. And just adding those two to this is not bad. We're just gonna make more money from the 200 to the 300 if they're gonna get caught regardless. But I do agree with Alderman Simmons on changing, going back in, maybe on and adding it to our agenda one day to change the wording of 1 through 4 with the tinted windows and the systems and all of, and those kind of things. I do agree with that, because I do think that should be worded however she put it. I totally agree with it. But what we have on there now is already there. And so are we going to get $200 or do we want to get $300 to let people know that, hey, you got to stop doing what you're doing? So that's what it is. So,
Alderman Monroe?
but we can go back.
So, a quick question. So, no valid driver's license, would that be somebody whose license is expired?
Yeah, I mean, technically, yes.
So out of those 102 violators and 8 repeat offenders, there's a percentage of those, there's somebody just forgot to renew their driver's license or let it expire by accident.
Correct.
Yeah, like me, for instance.
Been there, done that. Yeah. So, just because we've done it that way for years, the way we've done things for years is what's gotten us to this point in this city where we're divided east and west. And that's the problem. And what we've done for years, we never did roads or infrastructure or anything else prior to the previous council coming in. And now we're all working toward a common theme of fixing the city and fixing it. And why push this forward just because and raise the rate when we could fix it with one fell swoop, change the language, get it back to something that's more substantial and aligns with, keeping our community safe and targeting the issues that we truly have. And look, our officers are great. Everybody makes mistakes. I make mistakes on a daily basis. And I'll be the first to admit it. But putting some of this out there and allowing it to be there is a mistake. And I'll leave it at that.
It is, excuse me, it is
Alderman
like
Sanders.
citizens beware of things that you're not adhere to or have knowledge of. And if we got everybody around here guessing or have no understanding of what the ordinance can be imposed upon you, that's not a good service tactic for the citizen. It's a disservice because everybody is not knowledgeable to all of the ordinances that is being applied. And so I think we should be a little bit more aware of that ourselves as officers, leaders, councilmen. I think we should be aware of those kinds of things before we impose any kind of ordinances against anyone. We should have complete clarity, and not only that, to the citizens of the Freeport should have clarity as well. And so if we're not doing that, then we're not doing our job, you know, so.
Alderman Sellers?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we move this to change the wording.
Already started to vote.
Huh?
You already
I-
started voting.
Oh, we did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You voted aye, and it got to me, and then a whole new discussion came.
Oh. Tom,
I don't
tell you,
care. My next,
yeah.
that's okay. My next question was just gonna be legally. If you vote this down, okay, the ordinance still stays intact, only it doesn't have the three things in it, and it doesn't, and it has the old prices in it, correct?
Correct.
Correct, okay. So if you wanna do something after that, whatever you wanna do, go ahead and do. But if you vote this down, it's still intact. You haven't changed a thing.
Okay, so,
Well, not having the opportunity and chances to make those changes and trying to litigate it right now is an improper time to try to talk about what is going to continually to happen as opposed to us getting together to make these kinds of change. And these kinds of changes does not happen sitting right here in this council. Those kinds of changes have to be talked about and discussed for those type of changes that we're referring to. So it's not about accepting the ordinances as they are without talking about the whole thing about the environment of this ordinance. So we still have not done any justice, not for ourselves or the people of the city.
well,
And
this
that's-
is the third
that's-
meeting we've been talking about this very ordinance.
Well, we may have been, but we have not had a real discussion in regards to this particular ordinances and the content of what we're speaking on. So there's a difference.
Okay, so what do we want to do, council? I mean, by
We can,
agenda, go ahead.
So this is, well, to the initial point, as far as calling for the vote, I think Alderman Sellers said, well, I'll vote in favor of raising the rate, and she voted aye, but then I stopped and clarified, said, wait, that's not what the ordinance says. So I think she voted aye, not necessarily understanding what was before the council there. So I'd actually probably just treat her not having had cast a vote yet at this point. So what you then is this ordinance as presented. If you guys want to vote on it, you can vote on it. You can vote it up, you can vote it down, right? As Alderman Clem said, if you vote it down, then you're left with the ordinance as it's currently in the books right now. If you guys want to then say, hey, we want to look at the whole thing again and make additional changes or whatever the changes are, you guys can do that. Another alternative is to say, hey, it sounds like there is maybe some support for adding the additional proposed offenses like the chief has suggested, driving while suspended, driving while revoked, driving without a license, but maybe we have some concerns that warrant further discussion about items 1, 2, 3, 10, loud music, whatever. If you guys want, you could also just say, you know what, we'll send this back to Cal. We want some additional tweaks made to this, Aaron. You know, yes, the consensus is add driving while suspended, driving while revoked, no license, increase the fee, but you guys can talk about then get rid of tint, get rid of whatever it is, or whatever the change is, there. So if you guys want, that's another option, just to send it back to Cal for further revision.
Alderman Simmons?
Okay, so that's what I was getting at with the driving with suspended license. We are now adding that, or with missing a license. That's what I was saying, if we focus on those repeat offenders. So what I should have done is made a motion to move it to Cal to discuss those changes.
You can.
Yeah, you certainly can. If you want, or maybe not even just that specific. It sounds like there's a lot of additional points too, just for further discussion and revisions.
Okay. So if I have the floor still, I guess I would like to make a motion to move this to Cal. If we would like to make any additional changes. Seems like we all have changes we want to make to different sections of the ordinance anyways. We can make those suggestions at that
Okay.
time. So I make that
second it.
motion.
Is there a second?
Second?
Okay, so now we can have discussion on whether or not we are moving it to the cow.
I have a question.
Sure.
Was there a vote being taken or not?
He already discussed.
There was, but after when she said that I vote in favor of the increase in fees, that wasn't the right. She didn't understand what the motion was, because that's not what the motion was. The motion was all of the things.
Yes.
So she was only casting a vote in favor of the fees, which she couldn't do. And that's right after she said, yes, I'm in favor of raising the fees. That's when I stopped the vote and said, no, that's not what is before you guys.
Okay, so on the subject of it moving to the cow, is there any discussion on that? Yes.
I'd like to know, are we just looking at changing the violation of being told with the first four, or are we?
Discussion however you want to
Oh, okay,
discuss.
okay.
It's a committee of the whole.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alderman Clem?
I would just ask you to reconsider, Rachel, on your motion to move it not to the next cow, but the following cow, because you're going to get so much in a cow, you're going to be here till 13 o'clock already. So, you know, just so it's discussed right.
I can do that.
So you,
So it would not be for June's cow, but then we move it to July's cow?
July
Is
cow,
what
well,
you're
that would have
asking?
to be, Alderman Stacy, would you agree with that or no? Because you were the second.
Would you agree to amend your second
Yes,
for the July council?
July, the second, okay, the second Monday in July. Yes.
So that's the discussion then. Do you have something on the cow discussion?
Yeah, we talked earlier about the wording of the ordinance, the things, the contents of what's going on in the ordinance. We still haven't decided.
That's what going to the cows for.
Well, I didn't hear changes as opposed.
Right,
to-
that's why you put it
as
on the cow to
opposed
talk
to,
about whatever changes you want.
Yeah, well, okay, wording.
Thanks, Tom.
I wanted to be more specific in the wording of what we're going to be changing. That's what I wanted to make sure we understood that.
So because this is being referred to the cow in July, that at that meeting, you can bring up whatever changes you want to bring up.
Okay,
Wording, tell me what kind of wording you want.
exactly.
Alderman Stacy?
So it will not be discussed at all next week?
Right.
Not until July?
That's what the motion is. Unless you want to, I mean, that's, yes, that's the motion.
Okay.
Okay, so I believe we should probably have a vote on that. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on moving this discussion to the July cow?
Sellers,
Aye.
Clem,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Simmons,
Aye.
Stacy,
Aye.
Shadle,
Aye.
and Sanders.
Aye.
The motion passes 7-0.
Okay, item number 10 is the first reading of ordinance 2024-27. Could you please read this?
Ordinance authorizing Comcast franchise agreement.
Manager Boyer?
Thank you, Your Honor. The City of Freeport has a cable TV franchise agreement with Comcast, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, LLC. The current agreement is going to expire, and it's time to renew a multi-year agreement with the cable provider. City staff has received, negotiated, and reviewed a franchise agreement for Comcast services for Freeport, and the city receives taxes from the service that Comcast sells within the community. I and Attorney Zito have examined the agreement and are recommending it for approval to the City Council. The new agreement is a 10-year term of 10 years.
Is there a motion to move this forward?
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Clem, seconded by Alderman Sellers. Discussion on this ordinance. Alderman Sanders.
Yeah, the Comcast proposal. Have we made it? I think I heard someone mention that they give us such benefits, offerings, and things like that. But have we made an assessment to determine is that the best thing for Freeport? There's other businesses or entities out there that displays maybe something that we can probably look into to determine whether or not Comcast is our only option. I think we should look into it. If it's something that we have not, if they've been our primary cable service, then I think we should look into what it is that we can change. If it benefits the majority of the city of Freeport, then I can go with that. If it has no issues. But from what I was understanding about a week or two ago, that we was talking about fiber optic and things of that nature, and I'm like, I want to hear the comparisons in the difference and who is servicing the city of Freeport at a better cost.
Manager Boyer, did you want to address that, or Aaron Zito, or, yeah?
So this particular franchise agreement is for cable TV services, so completely different than fiber optics, okay? And this franchise agreement is non-exclusive. So this agreement does not say that Comcast is the only person or company that gets to provide cable TV service in Freeport. If another company that provides cable TV wants to come in, they can come in as well there. But this franchise agreement basically, for the most part, regulates their ability to be able to use our right-of-way to place their lines to service the community and everything like that. It also provides the fact that they have to pay us a fee. A tax that's provided for by statute. I think it's 5% of the revenues there that they have to pay to us there. This agreement is pretty darn close to almost identical as the previous term that they had. There is one major difference, and it's a difference that doesn't cut in our favor, but there's nothing that we can necessarily do about it because they changed the law. So one of the items in our old agreement was that we did get free monthly cable service, okay? In this agreement, it does not specifically say that anymore, okay? From a practical standpoint, Comcast is not charging its communities as a policy, okay? At this time, they are not charging people for the service. Even though they have the right to, they are not doing it, okay? But the law changed. So the law says that they can charge for it, okay, or they're supposed to charge for it. They're not doing it as a policy decision there, but obviously you can't write into the contract something that's contrary to law there, so that's why they're not putting it in there. So, but as of right now, they're not going to charge us because they're not charging anybody for the service. But because the law changed in 2019 and they can charge there, it's just meant, so in theory, it could be 6 years from now, 7 years, it could be 2 months. There, they get a new CEO or whatever that says, hey, start charging municipalities for the service. It is what it is, unfortunately. I guess the only silver lining is that as a business decision, right now their policy stands that we are not charging monthly service fees to city buildings that get the cable service there. So that's the primary difference in this agreement. Otherwise, it's pretty darn close to identical as the previous agreement.
Alderman Monroe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Attorney Zito, I tried to understand the Illinois level playing field statute that's listed in the competitive equity section. Can you kind of give an overview for us to kind of explain what that means? Because when I read this, it was like very lawyerish. So
it's basically it's also sometimes called a most favored nation clause. So if we grant a franchise to another entity, another company, yeah, something like that, and it has better terms in it, let's say, or what is could be deemed to be better terms, we have to then give Comcast the same.
So if we only get 4% from them, we have to say Comcast we get 4% from then.
Correct.
Okay.
Something that's an example, right? But it could be anything, right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Darren.
Yeah, there's also a distinction between cable TV and internet service. They're not the same thing, right? Comcast provides both. If I'm correct, we don't get taxes off of internet, we get taxes off of cable TV.
Right, so this franchise fee is, per statute, is about cable TV service.
Alderman Sanders.
So what you're saying is that internet from Comcast would be considered free
we received bids from 4 contractors, and I provided analysis in the memorandum. And based on the 4 contractors submitting their bids, staff is recommending a total award of $65,850. And in that breakdown there, Kleckner Excavating would receive $25,000. South Rose Avenue and 35 South Mary Avenue, and staff recommends approval of these contracts.
Is there a motion to approve these bids?
Motion to approve the $65,850 for the demolition of the mentioned properties.
Is there a second? So moved. We have a motion made by Alderman Clem, seconded by Alderman Sellers to approve as said. Discussion. Alderman Sellers.
No, these are the specific properties are not.
The reason why I say is I'm aware of the fact that there's asbestos out there in one of those, out there in the hangars, and that has been inspected. Part of the demolition. Oh, okay. Well, I just want to make sure that we're talking about asbestos.
No, we're not. We're talking about these
The
5 properties.
demolition, oh, I'm sorry, the demolition. I'm sorry.
Right, so,
Regards to the demolition.
right, so this demolition that's before you, this bid, is specifically for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 specific addresses, which does not, none of them of which are airport related.
Alderman Sellers.
Yes, I would just like to know, these, properties, this money that's coming out, is that the money that's coming from that, mitigation grant?
Yes, thank you, Alderperson Sellers. This grant funding for these properties is coming from a floodway mitigation grant that we received in 2019. And it was from the state of Illinois, and it was, the specifics of this grant were that if the city owned property, it could then be reimbursed for the demolition of properties. So these properties here were acquired in a tax sale, which means the property owners abandoned the properties, they didn't pay taxes for 3 years, and staff, meaning myself, went and bought these properties for the back taxes, and now I'm using the grant funds to demolish them. So that's the story behind the funding for these 5 properties.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor. Is there any further discussion? Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Sellers.
Aye.
Clem.
Aye.
Monroe.
Aye.
Simmons. Stacy. Shadle. And Sanders.
Aye.
The motion passes 7-0.
Item number 13 is approval of more bids. Could you please read this?
A bid opening on May 31st, 2024 at 9:15 was for CD 005-2024 demolition of 9 residential structures.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the City of Freeport published in Journal Standard on May 26th for requesting services for the demolition of 9 properties, and the bid opening was held on May 31st at 9:15 a.m. And in this particular bid opening, we had 4 contractors submit bids, and in this particular situation, we had a lump sum bid for all 9 properties was the lowest responsible bid, and that was from Fisher Excavating, and they put a bid for $98,470 as the lowest bid, and I provided the analysis of all of the submitted bids for these services. So with Fisher Excavating being the lowest responsible bidder to demolish all 9 properties, staff is recommending executing a contract for their services for the $98,470. I do want to add here, it was mentioned before about grant funding. 7 of these properties were funded by the mitigation grant, the State of Illinois DCEO floodway mitigation grant that I had mentioned earlier. 2 of the properties are funded through the IDA, Strong Communities, Illinois Housing Development Authority, the Strong Communities Program grant, which is known as the $300,000 demolition grant we had from IDA. So there are 2 funding sources for these demolitions. So staff recommends approval of this.
Is there a motion to approve as stated?
Motion to approve the $98,470 by Fisher excavating. Second.
We have a motion made by Clem, seconded by Monroe as stated. Discussion on this, Alderman Sullivan.
Just one, I know you stated that, excuse me, 2 of the properties was out of the $300,000 mitigation grant. Would that be, then where's the other property? Who's funding and supplying that? Because we have one that's Stevenson, Madison, and Empire. All of those are out of that area.
So, yes, good question. 529 East Madison and 325 East Empire are being funded through the $300,000 IDA grant. All of the properties, including 1106 East Stevenson, are in the floodway mitigation grant funding. So that's the breakdown of the funding.
Okay, it's Stevenson one is, okay.
Yes.
Alderman Smith.
So I have a question, as far as the mitigation grant and then the other grant for demolition. I understand that those are 2 different grants. So if you have a property that has been abandoned in the floodway, and you can't tear it down with that grant because you haven't purchased it or own that property, you then use other grants to tear down properties that are falling out of the
Okay. I'm going to try my best to answer that question. For this DCEO floodway mitigation grant, this is a state-funded grant, and their rule is that they will only fund demolition. So however I purchase those properties, not myself, council, or eventually the properties are purchased, yes, I would then move forward and then request to use this grant to approve the demolition. The reason this was done in this manner was that these properties didn't pay their taxes, and it was a way for the city to acquire property that can then be demolished. So if you're saying that in the future, if I see a property that comes up on a tax sale, yes, we would move forward to purchase it for demolition. But if the property's still paying taxes, that person, we would have to negotiate on how to purchase the property. Does that make sense? Like if it's not for back taxes, the city essentially has to negotiate the purchase.
Okay, so my question is, well, I guess that's really the second question. So if a person is paying taxes, it doesn't matter if they have no roof, because they are paying taxes, that property is allowed to just stay there all day long.
I wouldn't say that's the truth either. The recourse there would be code violations and then eventually a forced demolition, a fast track demolition, which is not a grant funded. So in theory, yes, we could move forward to demolition, but it wouldn't be grant funded.
And I'll just kind of try to add to it and see if that helps with adding any useful data there. So I think the reason why Wayne's office looks at the properties that are for back taxes, right, is because that's what we pay the back tax amount in order to obtain ownership, right? So usually taxes are usually lower than what the fair market value of the property is. So if you have a property owner, so let's say a property is back taxes of $5,000. We pay $5,000 and we get that property, right? And we don't have to pay. But if a person is paying the taxes on it there, and it's otherwise, even though it might be not a great condition property, it might have a fair market value of, let's say, $30,000 there. If we wanted to obtain that property, then we would have to arguably negotiate with that person, and they say, well, hey, fair market value is 30, you gotta pay me 30 for it. There versus the back tax part where all we have to do is pay the back taxes because the owner's basically gone. But if someone's paying the taxes, the owners, they're present, they're around, they're actively paying the taxes, so they would have a say in what the property is sold for to us.
Can I And Attorney Zito, I do want to even be more specific than that. These properties in here have actually gone to the trustee already. So they're even cheaper. The agreement that the city has with the trustee is that we purchase them for $815. So these all, and I apologize, I should have been more specific there, but I bought these from the trustee. These were problem properties, the trustee owned them. The city has grant funds to demolish them. The city this particular grant does not have money to purchase, only to demolish.
Okay, I guess my question is the same question I've been asking. It seems as though in this area, looking at what we previously approved was to be approved tonight, houses are being ignored that have been condemned, should be taken by the city, that are being left to stand because they don't fit into the mitigation grant. But we have another grant that can tear those problem properties down, but we aren't using them in that area because we have the mitigation grant. But then we still need these hazardous properties there because we can't tear it down with the mitigation grant. But we have another grant that can tear them down, but they are not being addressed. What I'm asking is how do we get those properties on this list to be approved for demolition?
Good question. The city, for us to use this grant, I know there's multiple grants that my team works with, and unfortunately, there's multiple rules. Each grant has a little different set of rules, and I do my best to see certain properties and say, this one could fit these rules, this one could fit this rules, this is how I could present to council how it would be paid for. The short answer to your question is, the city would have to get ownership of the property through a negotiated purchase. That would be would come from the capital fund, would come from the general fund, from the city. So essentially it would be property tax dollars from the citizens would be paying to purchase a property for demolition. You get my point there. So that's how, because the city would be negotiating the purchase and not being refunded through a grant, it would essentially be general fund money to purchase somebody's property before the demolition.
Even if the property has been abandoned outside of paying taxes, where the property itself has fallen in on itself, you can see through the entire property. I feel as though there is no reason those buildings should be left standing in any neighborhood, but let alone several throughout the same ward. So my question to you is, how do we get those on the fast track? And they should be included in the grant that covers, not the mitigation grant if they haven't been purchased by the city through that grant, but we have another grant available to tear down nuisance and troublesome properties. Why is that not being exercised in certain areas of the town?
Yes. The answer to that question is, I believe you're talking about now the $300,000 grant. Is that the one you're trying to refer to? This is the $300,000. That is
outside of the mitigation grant.
correct. I also have to show in that grant, I have to have ownership. So 529 East Madison Street and 325 East Empire Street, which are actually in this proposal here, the city of Freeport has a deed to these properties and is the owner. So again, it comes back down to in these grants, the city has to own them, fee simple, or has to have a deed to these properties. Like I can't. If I can demolish the properties that you're referring to, but at the end of the day, it's an orange sticker, it's a notification process, and the city would be paying for the demolition, and ultimately, I've done them before, they're called fast track demolitions, the person would still own the lot, but we would have paid for the demolition and then put a lien on the property. So that's how that would work.
Alderman Sanders. Tax on one of those properties, and if it's deemed hazardous and it's not conducive for the residential community at all, even though the owner is not in the mindset of negotiating, is there recourse to, because if it's creating a hazard throughout the community, is there recourse for us to be able to enforce or do some kind of negotiating to get this demolition started, whether we have grants or not? Because what we're saying is grants take a while, but if this becomes an emergency situation, do we have the right of way to do anything about it?
Yes, fast track demolition is a process, and it will take down the property. It runs through our code enforcement process, and essentially what happens is the city will get to a demolition. It usually takes between 30 and 90 days, closer to 90 days, to fully execute a fast track demolition. But again, what ends up happening is, and I've done them, several of them since I've been here, the city ends up demolishing the property, and then we put a lien against the property. It's hard to collect money on somebody who's not paying taxes, and then you tell them there's a $20,000 lien for demolition. So, but the lien's there, we do everything we can to collect it, and that's what would likely happen in the situation we're talking about.
And just to add to that, then you get to mow it.
Correct.
No, I'm not saying, no, I understand what you're saying.
Okay, so let's get back on topic. They're great questions, but they have nothing to do with these 9. So we have the 9 bids that were part of that motion. So if there's no further discussion on those 9 bids, Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Sellers?
Aye.
Clem?
Aye.
Monroe?
Aye.
Simmons? Stacy? Shadle? And Sanders? The motion passes 7-0.
Okay, then we'll move on to reports of department heads, finance. Thank you. Community development.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to thank the Public Works Department, as well as City Manager Boyer showed up to our cleanup on the city's east side. I myself was there, and even though it was cut short due to weather, it was a great event, and there was quite a bit of success. So I just wanted to thank everybody who showed up and participated. The Pretzel City Pickers were also there, and there was many people there. I apologize if I forget anyone, but just thank you for showing up to the community-wide cleanup. Thank you.
Thank you. Public Works.
Just give you a few updates on our major projects. Bradmar Town is almost completed. It's pretty much down to yard restoration, which I believe they're working on in between the rainstorms. Pearl City Road has the edge of road to fix yet, and striping to do. I believe that should be, depending on the weather, nearing completion by the end of the week. Adams Avenue is well underway. They're still working on utility installations. ComEd got pulled off by the storms, and so hopefully we're having them return soon to finish their pole work. Public Works has been extremely busy with the tree and storm debris. Just over the first 2 days of the storm, they had 105 loads of trees that they hauled out to the woodlot. I would like to comment that we've had several constituents within the community that have been extremely demeaning and rude to our staff. Those people will not be serviced if it continues. We've had people coming down and addressing our people at Island Street. We will not pick up debris if our personnel are treated in a rude manner. They're just doing their job. The storm cleanup is going to take at least another whole week, if not maybe a little bit longer, so please be patient. If we past your residence and you put stuff out, we will not be picking it up. We put notices out, and again, we're only accepting tree debris. We're not picking up landscape waste. We're not picking up bushes. We're not picking up just general wood or things that are thrown out at the curb. That is not the city's responsibility. We're picking up storm tree damage only. Thank you.
Thank you. Fire?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. event that Darren is speaking of, the fire department finished their 24-hour shift with a total of 50 calls for that 24-hour shift. Typically, we run between 18 and 20 calls per shift. This was exactly 50. And then another example, we all heard it raining here just a little while ago. We had 6 wire down and 3 rooms down just while we've been sitting here. So it's certainly a situation that all departments are dealing with regarding storm damage.
Thank you. Police?
I have no report tonight.
Library?
We hosted our kickoff party today and signed 283 kids up for summer reading and had about 500 people inside the library today.
Nothing tonight.
Communications? Airport? Would you like to have anything else for it? City manager?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd just like to thank the work of Public Works tonight. We had several trees down that they've responded to since we've been sitting here as well. So thank you to Public Works.
And the city was informed today of some very exciting news that I'd like to share. As most of you are probably aware, we had received that Congressman Sorensen had acquired $900,000 for the city, and that we should be receiving soon out of the fiscal year 2024. However, today, brand new, a press release came forward for the fiscal year 2025, and we asked actually for $4.5 million in that for a water main replacement. And Sorensen asked for that in a request for community project funding. So our portion of that responsibility is 20%. So Sorensen is actually working to secure $3.6 million for Freeport. And additional information that should be final, hopefully in July, is we received word today for $6.5 million from IEPA towards well number 12 in forgivable loans. That's $6.5 million forgiven. And then lastly, we also received for $2.1 million in the phase 4 in lead service replacement. We are far exceeding other communities, so if you did the math that quick on that, that's approximately $13 million that we should be receiving yet this year and into 2025. So I just want to say thank you to everyone that is involved with that piece of getting that going forward for the city. So well done. So we will move on to, we don't have it on here, but I guess it's council announcements. We start with Alderman Silver. And Alderman Clem. Alderman Monroe.
Nothing.
Alderman Simmons. Alderman Stacy.
I did have something, and I can read it now. I didn't know if I could do it here if I had those tonight.
No, is there something you want to talk about?
I want to take a moment and speak about the Midwest contractor and the program. This 5 crew is working it out in more ways than one, and work is being done correctly. The citizens are happy with what they are seeing and the difference they have made in the first month. Outstanding job they're doing, one citizen replied to me with a smile on my face of appreciation, as if I did it myself. I responded, thank you. Now, with that being said, I must speak about the racial discrimination that the crew endured just last week. The ones who don't like the idea of Midwest contractors being on their street filling potholes for no reason, no other reason than the color of their skin. Last Thursday around 11:30, the crew received physical and mental threats from being on a street where they were not welcome. Threats of bodily harm spewed out of the mouth of this resident as he came out of his home. Not once, but twice, calling them the crew, you black motherfuckers. Told them how he would kick their motherfucking asses. And yes,
I actually think that's against our ordinances to be swearing, so you gotta stop doing that.
and yes, you effing niggers. The management and director of the department were called by the crew immediately, and things were not handled the way they should have been. And this is what brings me to the mic tonight. The lies and undercutting must stop. Take care of them, the crew, just like you would expect yours to be taken care of. Their truth is their truth. Why do they need to swear to God that they did nothing to provoke this resident? Neighbors said that the crew did nothing wrong and did not deserve what happened. You want to make a difference? Then be the difference. All I ask is that you be fair and honest. If this was to happen again, I would hope the Midwest contractor, the crew, would simply call the police and file a report. And for the record, it's not too late to file a report from last Thursday's train of events. Based upon the citizens' response, this program has a great future. So for those of you who has your hands around their necks, loose them and let them be. The city crew do not have the manpower and need this program to prosper. Even though all do not agree, all this business and this program to be successful for us all. We need this business and this program to be successful for us all. In the long run, we need them as much as they need us. For the people who brought out water, cookies, and the list could go on, with a heartfelt appreciation, I and the crew say thank you, thank you, thank you.
Alderman Cheatham?
Nothing.
Alderman Sanders? Tommy, you want to come forward? Okay, so Tommy, first I just want to say thank you, that you are always an encouragement and kind with your words and public comments, and I wish more people were like you. And on behalf of the city, we want to say happy birthday. Happy birthday. So with that, do you have a public comment, Tommy?
Yeah, I wanted to thank you, because you do a good job with all this mail and stuff. We want to keep, and we want to ask you about the street rule. Is it looking good?
They're under construction.
And then this, okay.
Is there any, yes?
It's just so happens today is my birthday.
Oh, well,
No cake for you.
we have a public comments this evening.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, my name's Josh. I am definitely not Tommy. Okay. We all know to do a cake. Couple things as I'm sitting back there listening to stuff. You guys must be miserable when you go home. I'm sorry. It's rough. It's rough sitting out there too. I want to go back to the airport thing because I don't think we talked about that enough today. So I want to use my 3 minutes to talk about some stuff here. First off, thank you, Councilman Monroe. I was kind of circling back to that whole, there's all these farmers there, but only 2 checks are being written every month. That's interesting. I want to say, you guys represent us, people out in town here. So we're sitting back here watching people who represent us kind of confused most of the time. And it's like everybody came to class, but nobody did their homework. I don't know when you guys get this stuff, and I know this is not what you have, this is what I get. But there's a lot of confusion, and it's like you guys only talk once a month, and maybe that's the case, together once a month in this room, and nobody kind of knows what's going on, or kind of what questions to ask, or what they're even reading in front of them at the moment. We see all that. The citizens of Freeport see all that. So when we ask why the citizens of Freeport don't trust the city, or the government, all that kind of stuff, that's your answer. It's what we're watching right here. Enough about that. But the airport thing, my biggest question about the airport thing, which I know you can't answer, I'm sorry, I'm wasting the time here. From my memory, I think a month ago I was sitting back here and we approved a $10,000, $15,000 new lawnmower, which you thank you for today, which is great. I'm a little concerned that we didn't fix the leaking buildings with that money instead, but that's maybe none of my business. The auto thing, what we talked to the police chief, was talking about that. I'm very nervous to know the city council will be visiting the ordinances and trying to make changes based on what I've seen over the past few months coming in here. That makes me as a citizen very nervous to where I'm about to get upset and shake. I speak for myself, I don't speak for the people behind me, but to know that this group of people is going to sit there and change the laws of the land here in Freeport scared me a lot. That we don't know if we're talking about cars or we're talking about houses. I love the comment, I think, Congress or whatever, Stacy. It should all be treated equal, and I agree 100%. But then I think back, I've gotten pulled over once since I moved to Freeport out there on 20. Late at night, I was coming back from Rockford, sober, and I'm a nice guy usually. And the police officer let me go. It's his choice. Because I was a nice person, I wasn't really doing anything wrong, but I was speeding. But the fact is, I was speeding, I know I'm out of time. Keep that in mind, talk to your constituents, just get other people's opinions on this stuff before you start making changes, please. Okay? Thank you.
Any public comments this evening? Then we will move to executive session. Madam Clerk, would you please read that for the record?
Pursuant to 5 ILCS 122C2, collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees.
Is there a motion to enter into executive session? Motion made by Alderman Sellers, seconded by Alderman Clem. Roll call.
Sellers? Aye. Clem? Aye. Monroe? Aye. Simmons? Aye. Stacy? Aye. Shadle? And Sanders? Aye. Motion approved. 7-0.